both publications and research projects. This is very much also involved at the policy level in many policy initiatives concerning with environment, and therefore I would not waste additional time to his speech. So we are again a warm welcome to you, Massimiliano. I briefly remind to everybody the rules of the game. So Massimiliano will have about 45 minutes for his presentation. If we have short spotlight question, we can collect it and you can address it in real time. Otherwise, we're going to have a more articulated and extended discussion with proper question and answer at the end. Okay. I think that I'm gonna sit here to see whether some question comes from the Zoom, where we have some attendees. I can't remember if we have also someone on our YouTube channel. I can't remember, but in case if someone is taking care of the broadcasting, again, let me know in the chat of a Zoom so that I can pick up a question and pose it to Massimiliano in case. Massimiliano, the floor is yours.
Okay. Okay. So checking the tool. Okay, it works. So thanks for the invitation first. Very glad in the first seminar. Last time I was in Austria, January 2020. Yeah. I had to select a paper. To be honest, due to also to institutional duties, have a couple of papers now I've presented, very different. So at the end, I chose this one, which is not really. It's about innovation. It's not really within the core, but of our research, but we're also trying to diversify and find new routes. So I will explain in the background. In terms of new papers, just to mention some of these, we're discussing at breakfast for future interactions, where we can also interact, and we're always happy to share data and start co-authorships. We have a brand new data set on the innovation side, on circular economy and beyond circular economy innovation, which covers a microeconomic panel data, which covers thousands of Italian firms funded by the Dipartimento di Eccellenza project. Lucky enough, I mean, we had for the first time big money to spend on surveys. So new papers are coming out. So Sandro knows everything about as well. So there are opportunities there on the innovation side, I mean, to work together as well. Oh, Africa. Okay, first of all, this is a paper. Well, yeah, and the working paper is there in the seeds, and again, the seeds series is also open for. Africa. I mean, I was not an expert, and I'm not an expert about Africa. I have learned. I mean, why Africa? The first reason is that we had an Horizon 2020 project, Green.U, that was handed in 2019, and it was about the global diffusion of sustainable innovations, exchanges of technologies and knowledge. And one partner was Stellenbosch University, and we had a meeting in 17, yeah, in Pretoria. This has been the statement, but going a bit, okay, we had a meeting in Pretoria, and I have a friend who worked in Maputo, and he was invited to speak in Luca Cordelli. Luca is one of the authors, okay. Luca is now in Tunisia. He has worked in Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Tanzania. He's a development economist. He was usually manages the USAID funds for development in Mozambique at the time. So I took the chance to fly to Maputo, spend a bit the weekend there. And then we had a terrific trip driving towards Pretoria. Okay. So we had a bit of a national Kruger park, and we stopped here at night. I mean, we had dinner. During that dinner, the idea of the paper came up. Again, it was not my first time, but it was really my first time in Africa, at least in Southern Africa. So, and we were discussing about farmers and innovation, and Luca was sharing what he was doing. So, and the point that in the crisp point that emerged was that he was telling, he was sharing the difficulty of adopting the typical, or he was criticizing the typical top-down approach. Okay, you move to Mozambique and say, you know, those are very good technologies, new radical innovation, new seeds, new shops for you, and the farmers often reacted in different ways. For example, a brand new shop, the farmers were reluctant to enter because they said it's too new for me. I mean, I'm not. It's not my environment. Okay. Or for example, that was the point. Something like giving awards to farmers to increase production productivity. Okay, so you are the best of the community. So you have a new tool. It was sharing the fact that those ways were not always effective. So they're saying, okay, you are, Alberto, the top. Okay, high production this year, so you received the award. And the other saying, well, but now Alberto, okay, I'm not very happy. He's moving far beyond the community. So Alberto himself saying, well, I received this award, but I'm not really, I'm happy, but on the other hand, I'm part of the community. I don't know if you get the point, because okay, the point was what kind of peer pressures, interactions, social interactions you may have, and whether you have to push the individualistic button, or acting and working around social capital, networking, community values in order to increase the productivity of the community as a whole. Okay, so that was the idea. At the time, I was, and I admit, I was pretty unaware. So I reached Pretoria, and that is fine. So this is a point. So we started focusing on this idea. Luca was in Mozambique, so we started thinking about the project out of the Horizon 2020 partly around. So the idea was to analyze behavior, innovation adoption, focusing on some radical innovations out of the basket, how to change behavior, analyzing the motivations. Okay, here you have a hot political point. I mean, I think you're aware of. I mean, the typical top-down approach when used, for example, international funds saying, well, we have to do that because this is the right way. Or I just mentioned, because this is in my final slide, Lucas is proposing, is part of a network of development economists who support this market systems idea, okay, where maybe the focus is on systems more than market, which is not mainstream, okay. So it's, but if you have an interest, we can discuss out of the seminar. So the idea is how to and nothing against Yuri Gorondichenko, but at the time I was also reading some of the papers of a very renowned cited scholar. Some of the papers are pretty bizarre, I have to say. For example, Individualism and dividing the world into in between in collectivist culture, individualist culture. I was saying to myself, and here we have Alberto and Luca, what about Emilia Romagna, for example, and where I grew up, is this individualism or Scandinavia, or so this very black and white vision of the world is somewhat weird. Okay, then saying that individualism is behind innovation, productivity, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so just to side menu is very well known. So it's not a criticism, just to say that maybe to, simplicity, I don't know, it means too simple way, I mean, to analyze culture and things around. So, so here, the part on social norms, to be honest, me, Susanna Mancinelli is more competent on the behavioral change and social norms. Here we have different visions and models in between economics, political economy, psychology, sociology, so within social sciences. I mean, there is an overwhelming literature which deals with behavioral change. Okay, so that's one of the background. A more specific point. So, for example, sorry, a very key paper in this literature is the one published in the Economic Journal by Bandiera and Razul on Mozambique, actually. So by coincidence, it's a very top-cited paper about technology adoption. So, but it's on networking, and when we scrutinize the literature, you're overwhelmed by papers on networking, okay, and social capital, and so the gap there, I mean the added value we could provide was maybe not very high. So we also we came across another type of literature, which is that of good farmers, okay, which is really you see the journals where those papers are mainly are journal rural studies, rural sociology, okay, all that. So not really into strict economics, but interesting enough because you have this analysis of the perception of the good farmer, what the good farmer he is, and you have on the one side a typical productivity approach. I mean, the good farmer is the farmer which shows high productivity values, so kind of a leader, okay. But on the other hand, a good farmer could be a guy, she could be a leader in the sense that a community leader, okay, so maybe also bearing some costs in favor of the community if it is necessary. Okay, so again, individualistic, okay, or more communitarian type of good farmers ideas that I don't know why, but I mean, maybe if you have most, if not all papers on good farmers are on Western economies and the north part of the world. I mean, I would have imagined a different type of situation, but this is the situation. So especially Scandinavia, North America. Okay. Yeah. So you have good farmers idea. Stigma effects, social interactions in the African context. That was the idea that started being developed with the African team, with Luca and his team in Maputo. Okay. Well, so you see in the different, and we have in the paper now an extended literature review, but I'm not bothered you with that. Okay. So, okay, yeah, I jump a bit. So we decided to start a project, which is by definition a project that had to include some policy relevant, business oriented perspectives for Lucas' team and the US aid funding. Okay, so that they had to convince the funders on the one hand. So we decided to start. Suzanne and I were in the first time in Mozambique in, luckily enough, I mean, before 2019, in February, for a couple of weeks to set up the first version of the questionnaire with the local team. So it took 6 months to draft the questionnaire. It's simple, you know that, but also to translate in different languages and Portuguese. But then we were lucky to find a local team of students from business schools, because then you have to interview farmers who speak Portuguese, maybe. So because yeah, as you know, again, I'm not. I'm talking about Africa now. I'm a bit more expert about that, but yeah, you have Maputo and the big cities. Maputo is like staying in Marseille or Lisbon 25 years ago or something like that. So it's really Europe to some extent. Not much of a difference, I would say. But then when you move outside Maputo in rural communities, the gap is really huge. So that's the point. So frankly, yeah, the case, the paper is based upon 2 provinces that were feasible. Okay. Mozambique is a non-problematic country. Okay, you can move around. Now they have some problems up north because of the typical natural resource and oil clashes, but up north. So basically, we had a second trip in October 2019. So really lucky because October, and we carried out basically the pilot studies and the sort of interactions with the students. Thanks to the students. Now I'm showing some photographs. That we really and the two areas are the Chimoio next to Zimbabwe, where Susanna was, and I was in Nampula. Okay, so those are the two provinces. Anticipating a bit, another paper could be investigating the possible differences. We played a bit, but now we have just 300 questionnaires. Okay, limitation, yes, but this is. So the fieldwork operations were managed by the Innova team and experienced staff. So they usually carried out surveys. Okay, so it's really part of their job, not oriented towards also towards publications or per se scientific research, but they given that they receive millions of US funding, so they have to carry it out. So they and the so the team Raul, which is who is a co-author and the manager, and then the drivers, because we moved around, and the students. Those are the Chimoio. This is the Chimoio team. This Nampula team, my team in Nampula. We got Nampula Business School students. So you see in the villages, really interviews. So see this typical environment, this typical disease, how the interview is carried out. Okay, so that's the stuff. Gender issues, we have not investigated very much gender, but gender, if you have gender-oriented interest, this is something that you could also, just a joke, one of my career objectives is to publish in feminist economics. Okay, so, but I need help. So that's such a joke. Okay, so those are so this is the any curiosities? Okay, I know. No sampling.
Farmers that you have considered in your analysis. So I was asking whether these people are farmers that are originally from those areas or are coming in from other areas, although probably from Mozambique you go to South Africa rather than the other way around.
I don't think migration is an issue in the sense that those communities are stable communities. Mozambique is politically speaking, is a stable country. Frelimo, democracy, somewhat, but yeah, it's really controlled. So those communities, and I'm very transparent about that. We didn't have the budget and the possibility. I don't know whether other papers, even the Bandera Azul paper, is based on an NGO activity. I don't recall which one, but so they use the NGO data set, something like that, to represent that. So it is representative of two areas where cooperatives, farmers cooperatives, offered the possibility to interview people, stratification, and was not carried out in the usual way. But again, I'm transparent. I mean, this paper is possible even because there is the support of US aid funding, and so it is a typical compromise between policy-oriented action and the collection of data for research. So that's the point. But yet migration is not an issue.
I don't know if you're going to tell us later on, but I was just curious. What, sorry, with the mask and everything, what's the typical average level of education of the interviewed people? And is there any regional or gender variation?
Sorry, the last one
is there any regional or gender variation in the level of education of the people that you interview?
Okay. In order to reply, I need to check the data set. Sorry, but it's really huge. And then I say that I'm really happy to share with you the data set with all the data, because maybe we also collected too many data in the sense that being there, we said it's typical, okay, let's go. And then the data set is really rich. So we have the income levels, rich education in different. Education is typically very low, which is so as I said, they even don't speak Portuguese, so they understand, but they have schools, but I mean the farmer, I mean some of the leaders are more educated, but the people you see are the level is low. Then Mozambique, I don't want to talk about Mozambique. I mean, where we were there, groups of students were observed going to schools even in the afternoon. So the government, being a socialist government, okay, is pretty committed into education. And Mozambique, even if Mozambique is, if I remember well, still in the very low level of human development. So it's the overall situation is not very bad, but this is again there is an urgent need of development and training and especially training and this is the key activity of funding. Yeah.
Hello. Thanks. I was reading in Wikipedia that in Mozambique the land is formally owned by the state and is then traded in informal markets, in informal fashion. I was wondering, because in the context of the Global South, I'm a bit familiar with the work of the Hernando de Soto, who is kind of mainstream view in economics and part of the so-called Washington consensus. And he put a lot of emphasis on the legal titles to land ownership by people in the economic entrepreneurs in the South. He referred to Latin America, but his view were held by the World Bank and were globalized in a way. So this was how this issue of land ownership did it came to the fore in your interviews with small farmers. Was it a key issue in your research? I think it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, very good question. This is a key topic I've discussed with Luca, and this is the key topic for people working in Mozambique. In the sense, it is a formal democracy, social government with an history of communitarian land. They are in transition in the sense that they are trying to. The work of development agencies is to interact with the socialist government in trying to include some new entrepreneurial staff into in farmers' works. on the basis of this exogenous constraint, I could say. I think, if I remember well, I mean, they are working around it by using temporary licenses. But again, cooperatives manage the land, so the role of cooperatives and communities is pretty strong. So it's a kind of a hierarchical state, community, cooperatives, farmers, and farmers are embedded in this way. But again, this is a key topic. I just started, as I said, working in Africa. I'm not a development economist. This is a key topic, working in between or mixing those individualistic approaches and working on the values of communities, analyzing case by case, how the transition can be managed there. But the issue is absolutely relevant for Mozambique, so it's a topic they are dealing with. I mean, at the level. I anticipate, because I mentioned this approach. There are a couple of references in the paper. This market system development approach, which again is not mainstream. It's a niche framework, which is focusing on this system keyword, working around behavioral change, where the key issue is to remove subsidies in the long run, creating the preconditions for entrepreneurship, innovation. It's not easy, as you know. So how to without using top-down approaches. Okay, so going back into the first meeting we have discussing those things. Okay, so that's what this is.
We have a very last question before letting you carry on.
Andrea, thank you. Yeah, it's a connected question to what Ugo suggested, because I was also thinking of property rights, and Ugo's question made me think of a relatively old but very important paper on the Journal of Political Economy, where they try to look at a similar question for Ghana, and they identify two mechanisms related to property rights that might hinder investment in productivity or technology adoption. And one is the fear of expropriation might hinder investments and technology adoption if they don't have property rights on the land. And the other one goes through the, let's say, access to credit mechanism, because if they have to pay for fertilizers and seeds, but they cannot use the land as a collateral for loans, then this also might hinder the new technology adoption. So yeah, I think the property rights aspect is quite key here.
It's up to you, Massimiliano, whether you want to respond to these at the end or you want to carry on forward.
Yeah, again, property rights. I mean, as I said, I mean, and I don't have a photograph about the cooperative. I mean, it is based upon cooperative-based type of approach. So I mean, then farmers have, I mean, the land and they work, but it's on the seeds. Yeah, one of the key problems is the fact that most farmers tend to use the seeds they have on the type of seeds the family has used for years, and typically those are low productivity seeds, even because they are reused. And the challenge for development is to convince or to support farmers, I mean, to buy new seeds. But then there you have economic problems, but also cognitive problems. Again, going back, when you have a new shop with new seeds, you say more productive. The farmers react. I don't know, but that shop is too new. I'm not coherent. Okay, even in symbolic terms. Okay, that was one of the first problems we had in mind. Okay, Then, okay, we also have some in the paper some quantitative stuff. This is, as you know, I mean, here we are microeconomic. So we have innovation adoption, 7 categories. So you could either, you could use binary variables, construct indexes. Here, maybe we have exaggerated because the idea was 2 papers, but they were 1 paper that you can read. As you know, I mean, in microeconomic terms, I mean, I'm also very transparent, and I've worked on panel data and macro over the past years. In micro terms, I'm more expert about multinomial logic and other stuff. So I know Alberto, for example, is very skilled. If you have ideas for new models, or but the issue is here is not really models. I mean, we checked Poisson. We have a 30% of zero, so we checked zero inflated. Also negative binomial, so basically I mean the basic stuff. And overall speaking, the AIC-BSC test, like a ratio test, will tend to favor Poisson model slightly, rejecting the hypothesis of diversity between Poisson and negative binomial. But again, the Wong test favors the zero inflated, and also the zero inflated Poisson is preferred according to the statistical test, and the hypothesis of that the zero inflated and the zero inflated negative binomial are different is rejected. So overall speaking, don't bothering you. In the paper, you have the zero inflated Poisson as key model. I know there are maybe more advanced, but I'm here to accept.
I don't know whether you're gonna say it afterwards. So the farmers have been first asked whether they have adopted an innovation or not. Oh, he's here.
Yeah.
And the intensity of the adoption. Is it correct?
No, this is the key. This is the key question. So it's basically a yes or no question across those categories. So you can either pick what we decided. So here there is an enormous amount of things you can do. What we decided, talking to experts there, was to focus on intensity first. And after some talks and meetings, selecting radical innovations out of the basket to analyze radical innovation. So that was the key. And then for radical innovation, you can use either simple logic 1 by 1, or deciding to, for example, that what we use here, focus on the adoption of all 3 radical innovations, or at least 1 radical innovation. 2, so we checked across different definitions of what radical innovation may be. Okay, so that's the share of innovators, as you see, is more or less this. You have this frequency, which is pretty much, for example, it's not different from what you have in another paper, very different. So it's a statistical issue here. So again, okay, innovations over 2 seasons. we relied upon the knowledge they have, so we decided to cover, because here we reason about seasons, not years. Yeah. In the first round of referees, they asked to intensify the Radvic innovation specification, and thanks, Sandra, because you provided some thoughts for the new version of the paper. This is in the definition that you can. Please. Okay. We have the possibility, and this is in the final slide about further research, we have the possibility to analyze the continuity of innovation, because we focus on the recent past, but we also have a question about a previous period. So in that sense, the idea was to include something that could deliver a kind of analysis about the continuity of innovation. So if they already had innovated in the past, we have not used this here. No, it's just a recent past. So it's but again, there was a question in my last presentation. There was one in the audience who was interested in the dynamic analysis of. So we have some dynamics in the questionnaire that could lead to some more interesting stuff in those. Please. No, yes, I got it. If I got it, the second one was a suggestion for empirical research that I'm happy to
Yeah, the
collect.
conditional mixed processes perhaps is useful for the try to see if you have any other output, and the risk addition.
We don't have a specific question. What we could use in terms of control variables, we have a part in the general section of the questionnaire on socioeconomic features. In addition to income, we also have information about savings, borrowing, the stock of capital. They mean if they own animals, if they own staff. So those information may convey. If you have a focus on, okay, if you want to have a focus, there are economic information, capital-oriented information, and also savings and borrowing that now here we have used for just in terms of controls, okay, because we focus on the stigma effects and the good farmer as key independent variables. Okay, but again, extensions are many. So I'm happy to share with you the question.
We have we have another question. Daddy, do you have a question? Is it correct? No. Daddy, no? Okay. So there's a question from the chat. Based on your observation and interviews, does religion or tribal believing system contribute their culture and behavioral practices to form the idea of collectivistic good farmer? Can you read it on your own? That's the question. I don't know whether you have an answer to that.
We have religion. And we also have information that we have not exploited. Okay, it could be either because it is not statistically relevant, and I stress statistically relevant, or because we have not played it or included it in a, so religion is present. So in terms of control, it doesn't matter a lot, but I mean, it's simple. It's also the other is the role of the community leader. I mean, I can't recall the English, the blank about the English name of the shamano. Blank, sorry, a bit tired. There is an issue, and we have a question about if you have health problems, economic problems, are you referring to the community leader, institutional, or you also ask for, you ask help, I mean, or tribal kind of things, which is relevant. I mean, they tend to use both ways. So both mean the leader of the cooperative, okay, which is a leader, or and also the tribal type of leader. So again, we have not exploited this. I remember including the variable in my first regressions, but as a control. But this is unexploited again, as other issues in the. I mean, the question is 10, 12 pages, so it's pretty much. So going to the results, because I'm moving towards a kind of so we have two key sections, E and D in the question, where we first approach the good farmer idea. So we basically ask, do you agree, strongly agree on good farmers' perceptions, more productivistic oriented, or good farmers taking care about the community, even at ease or cost. Okay, so those are the way. Sorry, being this slide is too dense. I don't like, but just to so we have different images of good farmers in a given section. So this is one part of the independent variable set in this paper. Okay. So, for example, you see, whenever my friends are having a hard time, I support them even at the cost of my farmer results. So the typical prosocial all those things, I mean, were deeply discussed with local people. Okay, so that's not out of our brains. In terms of phrasing, in terms of acceptance of the questions, that's yeah. And just to give you an idea, yeah, those are the typical. Sorry, this is really cut and paste with some So the model D on good farmers, the model E on stigma peer effects. Here you see you have questions about the reaction perception people may have with respect to the farming results, which again goes back to the very original idea we had been for this paper. So you are happy, you're envious, you are okay. So that's so we basically ran regressions. One section is on intensity. The other section is using logic for the radical innovation praxis. And what comes up? Again, okay, again, those are typical questions you have. So it comes up if we are in the transition stage for this paper, because I mean it is pretty finalized on the one end, but as you know, we are also interacting with referees and other people. So now the situation is that 2 ideas of good farmer emerged. So inserting one by one in a very parsimonious type of regression. So after selecting key controls and avoiding highly correlated independent variables. So you have a key set of information about training, education, income, also the savings and borrowing stuff, so which is a key set. And then basically we include as drivers of innovation the information we get from out of sections E and D, so I mean the good farmers perception and the stigma peer effects. So both perceptions seem to impact on the intensity of innovation. Okay, so which is on the one end fine, on the other hand opens ideas and routes for further investigation. We could say that, okay, which is a policy-oriented point for US aid, for example, I mean, for the funders. Statistically speaking, okay, the community-oriented culture in the prosocial idea is not a constraint. Okay, again, think about being the real down-to-earth day-by-day work, I mean, which is linked to this research. Okay. Okay. When we focus on the radicals of innovation, more striking results emerge in the sense that the individualistic type of approach seems to be not really the key determinant there. Okay, or so it's not correlated with radical innovations. Is appearing as a determinant for non-innovators as well. So for the intensity of innovation, we have a mixed picture, but with both ideas emerging up. For the radical innovation side, it seems that yes, the prosocial community perceptions are more coherent with the behavior of innovation adopters. Okay, that's what we have. That's what we have. Yeah, repeating myself a bit maybe, but I was yeah, that's up to now. I mean, the key results we have found in this econometrics based paper, simple econometrics. I'm saying simple econometric why? Because another part of the story, which is now emerging, is that we included some open questions. So people talked. Okay. Here the issues that they talked in Portuguese and in the language. So we are working on text mining and a very different approach. Not so here we have to be careful because I'm fully in favor of inter-multi-transdisciplinarity. I'm also in a new PhD, environmental sustainability and well-being, which covers 12 departments. In Ferrara, a huge challenge. But again, you have to move beyond your discipline with care, in the sense that I'm not a sociologist. I know a bit, but I'm still a social scientist with economics background. So with the help of other new co-authors, we are working on the text mining activity. So, and there is a paper, there's an abstract now. So those are the key results for the this first paper. Okay. Here's another key result, and then the narrative is more, again, more development oriented and taking into account the idiosyncratic, trivially speaking, but I discovered that it is not really trivial in some cases. I mean, for me, it's trivial, this type of result, but when you work in developing countries, in some situations, I mean, the approach is really the top-down one, and the issue is, I mean, the general issue is how to transfer technologies or to co-create technologies. We were discussing benefit cooperation with Sandro at dinner. For example, in this project, there is there was another piece of the Horizon 2020 that was about reversal innovations and co-creation of innovations. And there is for example, an interesting project, that's a slide, sorry, which is called Kokono. Kokono is a startup technology. It's basically the baby Bjorn. Okay, you know the baby Bjorn, but it's a baby Bjorn developed in Uganda. So Kokono is developed with involving the women in Uganda, is constructed there using local materials, and the key objective is to reduce killings, in baby killings. So it's a kind of shell, a rigid shell which can be used. So there's another way to say that, okay, innovation creation and innovation adoption in general terms, which are different kind of things from using new seeds. New seeds and are mainly aimed at increasing productivity. Okay, yeah, we do have a problem of income and productivity, okay, which is a key one. The ways to understand how to support new seeds and new productive seeds, more productive seeds, in a sustainable way, by saying I give to look at the new seeds he uses the 2 seeds for 2 seasons, and then he said, well, I'm not really at my ease, so I'm going back to the seeds of my grandfather. They're less productive, but I'm more in line with those. So you see those kinds. So the sustainability of more productive seeds and technologies, and the sustainability has to have behind a kind of social glue and acceptance. Okay, and acceptance also means the structure of incentives. Okay, so again, I wasn't aware when there is this problem that an excess of variance in terms of performances may hinder the social glue. So because I'm not happy with you having too high performances. Maybe this is a problem or an issue that could also replicate into Western societies. I don't know, because maybe not just an African issue. The fact that I'm not happy that Luca has a very high profit and is excellent compared to the community. So those effects are maybe not just part of the African stories. Okay, so 2 minutes, and thanks for the attention. Always. So again, okay, education, information, training are more relevant in terms of control. So the key basket of training is a key point. Here is just a control variable, but training is really a key point here. Okay. Skipping a bit, I already shared with you this framework that if you have some, you also have references in the paper about the market system development approach. You also have conferences and the systemic nature is the main the ecosystem framework is the main thing. So further steps. So we are working on qualitative narratives, and this is the paper. We are presenting on Friday at the Agriculture Economics conference in Bologna. We set a joint session between environmental economics and agriculture economics. So this paper is thanks to Andrea Pronti, who is a postdoc. He has a background, he's an agricultural economist, so he has skills on the interpretation of agricultural issues that I don't have, and he has used softwares and extrapolating the sentences and the narratives farmers provided, okay, to create these type of paper. Okay, more economics, political economy papers. As I said, I already anticipated. One is maybe focusing on the 2 areas. Okay, 300 observations. I know I'm not a huge data set, but you could exploit. You have a dummy, but you could exploit the heterogeneity. Or yeah, we have a section on non-innovators and the barriers, which is maybe often overlooked in general. As a theme, I admit myself. On the continuity of innovation, it came up. The questionnaire also included some questions about in the past experiences. So one could work around a more dynamic story about the farmers which adopted and then stopped. Well, this is the many maybe other years you may have now. So thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Massimiliano. Thank you. We got already a number of questions. As Alberto noticed, this actually is a proof of how willing we were to have a seminar in person finally. So we couldn't resist those questions also because, I mean, being in person is definitely more enabling discussion. Having said that, let us now have a second round of questions. I think that Alberto already, oh, you have the mic.
Yeah,
okay.
I have a question and then I will take the microphone around, or at least in this part. Well, first of all, thanks, Massimiliano, and very nice pictures, by the way. I like them, and so nice and lively. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, better. No, the thing that comes to my mind when I see your results is I mean, obviously it's based on few probably provinces, municipalities. It's a very small area. So I'm not arguing against the external validity of the research per se. I mean, that's not my concern, but I'm wondering whether these results are driven by the context and whether you would expect similar results in other contexts, for instance, due to the fact that, as you said, this is an area where you've got many cooperatives, right? So and your results where you've got like radical innovation, which is driven by the good farmer with pro-social behavior, reminds me the idea of, you know, the fact that the farmers are getting together to buy something which is very expensive. So they are putting together their resources or their knowledge to deal with something which is complex, according to your idea of radical innovation. Or the other, or your first result about the fact that these type of attitudes do not hamper innovation, again, resounds like the typical cooperative agriculture that we also have, or we used to have in some parts of our region as well. So, so I was wondering whether you would expect similar results. For instance, if you bring your analysis to other countries like, I don't know, South Africa, or where probably individualistic behaviors are more relevant, I don't know, and cooperative are not so institutionalized as well.
Well, thanks. On South Africa, I don't know, in the sense that no, okay, can I reply, or can I reply now? South Africa, I don't know. South Africa is a more problematic country to some extent, and more developed, that, or more problematic to analyze. I could say that the idea to focus write another paper. It's not the current idea, so I'm really open to collaborations, is to focus on the differences between Chimoio and Nampula, because Nampula is the up north, more rural, culturally speaking, more Mozambican. Okay, and Chimoio, as you remember from map, is close to Zimbabwe. So to some extent it is more connected to a kind of Anglo-Saxon culture, because here across the border you may have different type of agriculture with all the influences coming from Zimbabwe. Because okay, but this is to say, for example, even in Italy, if you focus on Friuli, Venezia Giulia, or Tuscany, different type of economies, cultures, and type of structure. So, culturally speaking, this could be a regional studies idea to data, not thousands. This is the point, because that's the point. Then, about the generality of the results in the African context, or broader than that, you need to focus on the literature. What I stress, as I said, we have networking variables, but we are not using networking variables as key variables, because the literature has already scrutinized, okay, networking. So it's really moving to an area which the original maybe part is to focus on the good farmer, specific ideas, and the stigma peer effects. So those are the two parts that, as far as we are concerned, after having scrutinized the literature a couple of years ago, but were not covered in that context, in specific terms. So those two sections are the two sections that provide new information that you have not in other papers and research.
From any other question from floor? There's Alessandro Crociata over there. And of course, Sara, if there are questions from the Zoom, just put it in the chat box.
Thanks for your super presentation. My question is, do you think that in the module norms, that the perceived behavioral control could be an antecedent to measure the prosocial behavior of farms?
Sorry, I didn't get
the perceived behavior.
Because of the mask, maybe, but
sorry. Do you think that the perceived behavioral control could be an antecedent to measure prosocial behavior of farms? Because I saw, if you can go to the slide of the module. In the module A, you consider express your level of agreement with the following statements, and they are happy for me, and so on and so on. No? So my question is to put in this part the perceived behavioral control. If farms consider that judgment of peers, it could be relevant, such judgment in act in a prosocial way.
Okay. I don't know whether sorry, but this is just part of the section. Here we do have both ways, according to some applied psychology literature. So you have the perception and also the self-perception. They're happy for me, but then this section is broader. It also asks the individual to evaluate his her perception on the others. So it is a kind of self-image. I don't know whether they got the point. I mean, whether those effects are a kind of precondition for
it is.
Yes, I mean we do include those as independent variables. So I think they're pretty structural factors in the sense that we asked those in 2019 November, but we treated those norms and stigma as structural effects. I guess you could have room for analyzing those information by, for example, by using clusters. I don't know, instead of econometrics. I'm not. There's nothing against econometrics, but in this part of my life, I'm given a relative value, so I use those, but I also support people searching for other tools and analyzing those data with other tools. Clustering could be another idea. I mean, to find some kind of we are doing that through text mining, but finding some kind of ideal types and categories of farmers, I mean, characterized by different perceptions, different ideas about the good farmers and norms and peer effects. So you say we have 3 or 4 categories of farmers in the community. So when you approach the community, you know that you have heterogeneity in front of you. I mean that you have, but you know which type of heterogeneity and which features each group may be represented. So that's the point. But I maybe didn't get properly. I mean.
I think it might, I'm afraid the person in the Zoom can't hear properly. So we can hear you, but those in the Zoom can't.
Okay. So thanks for your presentation. It was more a question about related to what you observed during fieldwork, because maybe this attitude that it's like socially desirable, it's part of an equilibrium. No, so maybe in the community, if you deviate from the behavior of being a good farmer, you will get some kind of, I don't know, like social retaliation. I don't know if these relationships are mediated by a sort of political broker or something like that. I don't know if there is like one punishment of not being a good farmer in that community. I don't know if I explain myself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there are punishments. Punishments could be on the side of being too productive and receiving some kind of disapproval from the community because you move beyond in terms of excellence or whatever, which is, concretely speaking, again, sorry for the third time I repeat myself, the first problem Luca posed. We had this unsuccessful project supported by US aid, which provided awards to excellent people, okay, and it didn't work because people receiving new tools, new technologies, because they were more productive, they were not happy with that, with receiving in the award, okay, and other people were saying, well, but why? Because, okay, so that type of incentive didn't work. So it was a very original type of I mean, the birth of the idea. Then this is maybe the punishment, the fact that you have the social disapproval that undermines this type of incentives. Okay, the good farmer is not really about disapproval. The good farmer section. Sorry, now I have the question, but it doesn't appear in the screen. I just wanted to show me in the section ED in more specific terms. The good farmer idea is more oriented towards analyzing the way people perceive leaders and the role of leaders, so and the role then of the community in that situation. So section D is on good farmers, individualism, prosocial behavior, and section E is about stigma peer effects, and so possible disapproval of even of high performances by part. Equilibrium. Don't know what it means. I'm not imposing.
Sorry. if there is one kind of persistent, like you were mentioning about this mechanism of giving an award or a prize to farmers, no, if they were productive or not. But this is a mechanism that you kind of settle, no? It was not exist, it didn't exist before in the communities. So I was wondering, like my question was more towards like the persistent dynamics of those communities, if there was this kind of behavior before, not necessarily the reaction to the incentive mechanism, but what was before. That was more or less my question.
Before you have a social situation with an economy which was managed by the state for decades, farmers receiving subsidies, communism or whatever. Okay, the issue is how to move beyond that, creating more productive economies and farmers, and in order to develop Mozambique, taking into account that past, which is also a present, because again, as I said, Frelimo is democracy up to a point. It's not a democracy. So I don't know, Luca is expert, because there is no, sorry, this is a joke in brackets. Reggio Emilia is very important in Mozambique. I discovered the mayor of Reggio Emilia was invited as a key element because Reggio Emilia, the communist Reggio Emilia government funded the revolution in Mozambique. That's not a joke. So, just to say that you have a very idiosyncratic situation where farmers have received subsidies and don't starve even today because they receive subsidies and training and education from the state. Okay. Having said that, you have to do something because Mozambique is not top human development. So, and the role of US aid and other agencies is to develop the economy, creating some kind of entrepreneurial glue. But again, some ways were not successful. So our tiny piece of research is entering that big problem of analyzing how to change the situation in between socialism and entrepreneurship in a situation which is problematic in the sense that again the economic system you have there is really heterogeneous and at geographical level, Maputo versus the provinces. So you have that background, which is successful because people don't starve and go to school, but on the other hand, it's not successful because people are very poor and they tend to use not productive technologies because of cognitive constraints, cultural constraints. So they're locked in some technological realms which are not improving productivity. So I don't know if I explain myself. So it's a kind of in transition, low human development equilibrium or whatever that you need to support. And the working on the messages, both new, maybe also incentives based on individualism, if you're able to include it in a proper way, but also taking into account the structure they have and the interactions they may have and the equilibrium they may have, the historical situation they may have there. They deal with their social interactions and so on. So that's.
Other question? Alessandra.
And now it's open. I have a question, but is there a question online as well? Is that a long question online? No, I can't see there.
Yeah, I've already posted.
Ah, okay. Okay.
I've already addressed that question. Thank you.
No, thanks.
I'm going back 1 second to my initial question on your dependent variable, which was the one about dynamic and so on, because your paper has to do with the perception of the innovators and then innovation, right? So a radical innovation can be new to a community or can be established in a community. And I think that the perception of the innovators might change the first year that you take something new, rather than whether the community now is kind of used to you using whatever pesticides or herbicides and whatever. So I just wanted to clarify why I asked you that question before, because I think it's important to look at whether the innovation itself is new to the community. And you have it's true that you have a lot of information. So also these questions on the stigma, for instance, it's important to see if that changes over time, or is just saying the first year that they believe that somebody that takes up a new innovation is actually not altruistic and it's rather individualistic. If that changes, that perception changes over time. So that's why I was asking you that. And well, you said you're already working on that. So I'm thinking that you already had this idea.
Thanks a lot. We are checking now. I have the question for me, sorry, but we are checking the data about because we have a question about being have you used any of the following innovation in any of the previous seasons? So there is a possibility to analyze this wave, let's say, I mean the recent seasons and the previous seasons. So yeah, the problem is also statistical in the sense that we are checking whether the shares and the heterogeneity of this dynamic is sufficiently interesting to but we have yeah, so that's something that we can exploit absolutely, yeah. As we have, for example, as I was mentioning, a section on motivations for non-adoption, which is unexploited now. Absolutely.
Any other? I might have a question related to that posed by Alessandra about this issue of the perception of a novelty, of a radicalness of innovation. Premises. I really admire those that work on innovation adoption in non-standard contexts like this one. It's really challenging, in particular when you have to rely on subjective measurements of things that in other contexts instead have more objective measurement. This is actually an important issue here. However, I think that I wonder actually if the subjective way in which you collect and you construct your variables might introduce an additional novel issue. I mean, the prosocial farmer, as you call it, okay, in my view, is possibly also a more networked kind of farmer. This is prosocial possibly because it's more networked with others. And because of that, it might have more information and more knowledge about what is new and what is not new. I mean, my idea, it could be more selective when asked, is this new to the world, new to the sector? So given that he has more knowledge, is of course a fact, the perception that he has about the novel invention. So the question is, the basic issue is, I'm wondering to which extent the pro-sociality of the farmer is effective rather than the adoption of radical innovation, the definition per se of a variable. I don't know, and whether this could actually alter some of the kind of results that you have.
Yeah, yeah, I got your point. prosocial behavior. I mean, the prosocial. Then, as I said, we checked.
To be more synthetic, it might be the case that prosocial farmers perceived less radicalness than the non-prosocial one, or not?
That prosocial farmers
perceive less radicalness than the individualistic ones because they have more knowledge because of their interactive attitude.
Yeah.
Or would you be able to exclude that?
We don't know this because again, you need some correlation.
Yeah, of course you don't know, but I mean,
you need some clustering. As I said, it could be very useful, I mean, to carry out some clustering analysis of the community, to check whether you have structural links. Don't know. I mean, the situation is also mixed in the sense that you could also end up with having part of the community with which is not polarized, being against individualism or prosocial behavior. Yet again, it is to be analyzed further on, but you could be in front of some kind of real transition. The fact that the community has received inputs from, I don't know, the World Bank or USAID or other in Western-oriented development economists and agencies. So they have incorporated a bit of individualism. On the other hand, they still have their background, so this could be really heterogeneous across the community. The point is whether the prosocial behavior could be a constraint, which is a strong hypothesis of a part of the international community, which tells we have to eradicate and this kind of socialist idea in order to develop the economy. Okay? Very trivially speaking, so you know that. So whether that community-based behavior is something which prevents them from moving up into radical things or to intensive innovation. Okay. And fair enough if individualism is behind radical innovation, which is not shown by estimates, but besides estimates, the key point, I think, the really relevant point is to understand the transition in a given country, considering the background, which here is socialism, as in most African countries, but in other situations could be another one. So, okay, I mentioned Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is not comparable. So if you analyze Zimbabwe, we have to create another narrative about the background. Okay, so and so on and so forth. So so this is really this transition, how to include new incentives and new ways of managing the economy, taking into account the past. So it's really transition. It's not one could say, and I know we need a break, a shock. So let's move from there to a new economy with new incentives because this works better. So that's it's a discussion that is really hot in that community of international aid and agencies. More or less, the analogies between mainstream and heterodox approaches to the economy. So that's more concrete because when you spend 25, 35, 50 millions in a program, choosing one approach or the other, then you have also to take into account the efficacy and the efficiency of the money you are spending. So that's what I learned.
And if I don't know whether there are other questions. Otherwise, I have an additional one in this respect. I'm not sure whether I got it well when you presented. You said that you had some measurement of networking among these farmers, right? But you decided not to use it because it has already been used. You said in the literature you wanted to capture an additional issue related to the altruism of these farmers. I'm wondering whether there could be sort of correlation between the prosociality of the farmers and their network intensity or network behaviors. Could it be the case that the more network are also the prosocial? And is there any relationship between the two or not? Did you look at that or not yet?
I think I included networking in the first phase of counter-variable selection. But yeah, in order to sell the paper, if sell is a proper word, the literature on networking is really overwhelming. So I read 20, 25, 30 papers about networking in Africa and working in Africa. So it's
that was enough.
Okay. It was enough. I said to myself, well, given the competition, you know, given that I'm entering this world, maybe. Just sorry, I can't show, but just to explain, section E on stigma peer effects, we have a first section of questions which is like, imagine that your farming are better than those of the other farmers, and the question is, they are happy for me or not, or they're envious. And then the other section is, imagine that the farm results of some other farmer are better than yours. And the situation is, you are happy for him, her, or you are envious. So you have these two sides of the story in the norms peer section that wasn't appearing, sorry, in the very bad slide. So that's what we may have. Yes, networking is, I mean, the seminal paper by Bandiera and Rasul, which is extra cited. There was the main reason. I mean, there is very big, well-cited papers on Mozambique.
Yeah.
So, but we have information on network.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, I think that we can conclude the seminar here. I think that it has been a nice restart. We finally had some real discussion that actually proves that seminars are definitely more efficient than webinars, I think. We thank you very much, Massimiliano, for your presentation. Now, I don't know, Massimiliano, which are your plans when you are expected to leave, because we might have some students working on environmental related stuff and might want to have a talk with you. So if someone has some, I don't know, questions or comments about his or her thesis related to environmental things, I think that Massimiliano will be available for the talk. I mean, talk with him and see, because we didn't actually talk about when he expected to leave. So if you want to have a word with him, he's available. Okay. And and the seminar series will continue. We are populating the agenda for the time being. We have already another, this time it's a webinar, October 27 with Tom Bruckel. But we are populating the series with other names that will appear soon, and we will let you know, of course. Okay, thank you very much.